So, my love story starts the way all fairy tales do, with Craigslist and a bottle of wine at 2 in the morning. I'm 27 years old, working as a cocktail waitress on 14th Street to stay afloat and desperate for a vacation when I come across a casting call for a reality TV show. Do you still think about the one who got away? It reads. Maybe you've forgotten his name, but you haven't forgotten how you feel about him. And I know so many men who have gotten away. Nearly every man I've dated, actually. So I reply. 2 months later, after multiple rounds of interviews and one mandatory psychological evaluation, I'm cast, and the production company hires a private investigator to track down Benjamin Lago-Gitareux, a Frenchman I haven't seen or spoken to in almost a decade. Now, I know this sounds a little bit crazy, but 1, they were offering to fly me to Paris. 2, they were offering to fly me to Paris. And 3, Ben is someone I very much loved. We met when we were just 18 years old in a classroom on the outskirts of Reims. I was an exchange student on my gap year before college, and Ben was very French. I remember the first time I got up the courage to ask him what we were, and he told me, il ne faut pas sortir ensemble pour être un couple, il suffit d'un regard, which translates roughly to, one doesn't need labels in order to be a couple. All you need is a glance. As it turns out, Ben was exchanging glances with multiple girls. Insofar as a reality show is concerned, though, he was perfect. Foreign, attractive, emotionally unavailable. I figure best case scenario, we have a fling, I eat a croissant, and I fly back home. So I pack a camera-ready wardrobe and entrust my love life to a helplessly disorganized production crew. Our first stop is in Montpellier, where last I can remember, Ben worked in a sex shop, body painting half-naked women. So that's where we start, with me on a random street corner stopping complete strangers to ask, "Excusez-moi, monsieur, où est le sex shop, s'il vous plaît?" We film for nearly 2 weeks, and it's an intense process. There are wardrobe changes and makeup changes, and days I almost change my mind altogether. But before I know it, I am standing on the edge of the Pont des Arts as a sound engineer attaches a microphone to my bra, and a crowd of bystanders gathers on the sidewalk to watch. "Is that Scarlett Johansson?" one asks, to which the PA replies, "Oh no, it's nobody." She then turns to me and instructs me to just walk casually across the bridge and he'll be somewhere on your right. "Oh, and one last thing," she adds. "He knows someone is looking for him, he just doesn't know who." I hear her say action, and I do my best to do as I'm told, to walk casually across this bridge. And sure enough, there he is on my right. Ben has changed since I last saw him. Instead of torn jeans and a half-unbuttoned shirt, he's standing there in leather shoes and a suit jacket with his hands against the guardrail overlooking the Seine. I approach and tap him on the shoulder, and he turns around and says, "I knew it was you." And then he says, "I'll never leave you again." And I hear myself say, "You don't have to." Ben leans in to kiss me, and 2 minutes later, the cameramen literally have to come over and pull us apart. You know how when you run into somebody from your past, you kind of revert to the person you once were? The same goes for sleeping with them. We spend that night in Ben's hotel room, and everything about him is immediately and intensely familiar. We literally just lie there pinching each other to make sure the whole thing is real. "Do you mean what you said on the bridge?" I ask, and he says, "Bien sûr," but I don't do distance. And so I say, "What do we do?" And he says, "You move to France." The next day, we drive back to Ben's home, what feels like a veritable chateau in the vineyards of Champagne, and I call my mom to tell her the good news. I call her up and I say, "Mom, I think I found my husband." And she says, "Are you on camera?" And I say, "No." And she says, "Are you on drugs?" And I hang up because Ben's parents are waiting downstairs with champagne. We have so much to figure out, but the house, which technically belongs to his parents, is ours until we do. Ben sets up our bedroom in what once was the guest wing overlooking a walled-in garden and takes to calling me half a dozen nicknames. He calls me mon petit cœur, mon chat, ma puce, but most frequently, mon amour. I can still hear the sound of his voice echoing against the rafters of that home. Mon amour, viens voir. Fast forward 1 year later, and Ben and I have signed a lease on a 40 square meter apartment in downtown Reims. Our show has just aired as the pilot episode of FYI's Find My First Love, and it makes it to the Today Show with Kathy Lee and Hoda, and to obscure television networks all across the world. Beautiful, effusive messages of support start showing up in my inbox. And at first, I read every single one. I am impressed with just how astute our viewers are. "Oh, Miss Alicia," one girl from the Philippines writes, "you are just the epitome of the perfect woman." As time goes on, though, the messages become harder and harder to read. It turns out that whatever problems are easily swept under the carpet in a French chateau become magnified against a backdrop of dirty dishes, secondhand smoke, and IKEA furniture. "You are so lucky," one girl writes, and I read it wide awake at 5 a.m. because Ben is snoring so fucking loudly beside me. "When are you having lots of beautiful Benjamin and Alicia babies?" another asks, and we get in a screaming fight over a can of creme fraiche that was left open on the kitchen counter. "Clearly, I am looking for love on the wrong continent," one tweets, and Ben admits that he could never see himself living in America. Whatever semblance of a career I have is on hold at this point. I've written a few pages of a manuscript, but Ben doesn't care to read it. "I want you to be an écrivaine with a capital E," he says, not someone who writes for Cosmopolitan or Vanity Fair. There are so many moments I think of leaving, but every time I do, I get a message that stops me. Someone will say they've seen the show and remind me just how lucky I am. Gosh, how often do you find a love like that? To give up on the gift that we've been given feels like giving up on love itself, and so I don't. One weekend, Ben and I escape to the beach, and I take a nap on the sand while he paints me, just like the girls in the sex shop, but more elegant, sprawling calligraphy of blues, pinks, and yellows. When I open my eyes, he is down on one knee. "Mon amour," he asks, "veux-tu être ma femme?" My love, will you be my wife? I pause for just a moment, look him in the eyes, and hear myself say, I can't. It's been 3 years since I left France, and our episode is still airing on obscure television networks all across the world. Just the other day, a viewer from the Czech Republic wrote to ask me how much of the show was real, and I thought to myself, everything. The chateau, the champagne, the love in Ben's eyes moments after that proposal, when he pulled me close and told me we'd both be okay. I don't know if I believe in fairy tales, but I do believe in that.
Jeté tout par les fenêtres, aimé de tout mon être, je ne suis bonne qu'à ça.